kids that live near a grandparent actually have lower rates of disease and lower rates of mortality. We found our second blue zone on the other side of the planet, 800 miles south of Tokyo on the archipelago of Okinawa. Ladies, this is where women live the longest. They live about 8 years longer than Americans do. They eat mostly, again, a plant-based diet, but they also like pork. Vegetables we'd recognize, some other vegetables we probably wouldn't recognize. But more importantly, again, it has nothing to do with the diet or the exercise program. Something we hear a lot about in America. There's a lot of money to be made in diets and exercise programs. Here instead, they have social networks. We live in a society that doesn't guarantee that we're going to have friends. Yet if you don't have friends, if you meet the technical definition of loneliness, your life expectancy is 8 years lower than it would be if you have a strong network of friends. In other words, being alone is as bad for you as a smoking habit. The reason I took this picture is these 5 ladies here have belonged to the same Moai. Moai is a committed social network for 97 years. They still get together every night, drink sake, gossip, argue about who that hot guy liked best back in 1941, and really watch each other's back. Okinawans also have a strong sense of purpose, embodied in the word ikigai, which means roughly the reason for which I wake up in the morning. They don't even have a word for retirement. This idea that your useful, productive life is over at 65 or whatever the age is doesn't exist. Instead, you see 102-year-olds who still teach karate, still spear fish for their family and stay fit, not by exercise, but by doing something that helps their family. And in the case of Kamada-san, 102 years old, her ikigai was her great-great-great-granddaughter. These 2 girls are separated in age by 101.5 years. And when I asked her what it feels like to hold a descendant a whole century younger than her, she put her head back and she said, "It feels like leaping into heaven." Kind of makes you look forward to getting old, doesn't it? And then here in America, we found the blue zone in a very unusual place in the San Bernardino Valley. You get off on the Loma Linda exit, the first thing you see is a Del Taco and a Wiener Hut. And you've arrived in America's blue zone. Well, what's going on here is this has the highest percentage of Seventh-day Adventists. Adventists are conservative Methodists that, as it turns out, have been deeply studied by scientists. In fact, a government-funded study that followed 60,000 Adventists made some pretty remarkable findings. Life expectancy for women in this country is 80, but for Adventist women, their life expectancy is about 9 years longer, and for men, the difference is even more dramatic. Adventist men are living 11 years longer than their North American counterpart. So think about this for a second. These are Americans who live right outside of Los Angeles, under smog, next to Del Taco and Wiener Huts. You look at Adventists, they look exactly like us. They're mostly of European descent, but you also have Africans, Asian, and Hispanic descent. Yet they are living a decade longer than the rest of us. How do they do it? Well, the short answer is they have the right environment. They have the right sacred rituals. They take the Sabbath very seriously. For 24 hours a week, they slow down and rebuild their social network. Every Saturday afternoon, like a ritual, they take a walk with their friends or their family, the definition of which has evolved over the last couple decades, but nevertheless, every Saturday afternoon they get out and they hang out with other Adventists. Recent findings, this is actually from Harvard, a guy named Nicholas Christakis who works with us, found that health behaviors are as contagious as catching a cold. The only contagions that move through Adventist networks tend to be positive ones. They take their diet directly from the Bible. Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, God talks about beans, seeds, and then one stanza later, she talks about green plants. So you have a third culture in a row that eats mostly a plant-based diet. I wrote about these cultures and 2 more in a story for National Geographic and the books Blue Zones. Many of you got them tonight. But you don't necessarily have to read the book, though I'd like you to. I'll sum it up right here. No matter where you go, you see the same 9 things happening over and over again. Number 1, they move naturally. Not so much exercise, but they live in homes that have been deconvenienced. They tend to garden. And when they do something which we would classify as exercise, it is really more of a social activity. They don't wake up in the morning and say, I have to walk today, or I have to skip rope or go to the gym. They get up and they say, the highlight of my day is when I get together with my 4 friends, my moai, and go for a walk. Or they love being in the garden. When it comes to the way they live their life, they have the right attitude. There's time every day where they slow down and reverse the chronic inflammation that comes with stress, either through prayer or meditation. They have vocabulary for purpose. You say to yourself, why is this guy standing up and talking about purpose? Well, knowing your sense of purpose, and this is research from the National Institute on Aging, has shown that knowing your purpose is worth 7 extra years of life expectancy over people who don't know their purpose. When it comes to eating, it's very simple. You can drink a little bit. We know that people who drink 1 or 2 drinks a day actually live longer than teetotalers. We don't necessarily advocate alcohol, but we don't say anything against it. And no, you can't save up all week long and have 14 on the weekend. They eat mostly a plant-based diet. Does that mean they can't eat meat? No. On average, if you look at Blue Zones, people do eat meat, but it's eaten as a condiment or as a celebratory food, 5 or maybe 6 times a month. Most of what people in Blue Zones eat are beans. Black beans in Costa Rica, lentil beans in Greece, and in Okinawa it was soybeans. In Sardinia it was lima beans and fava beans. This big secret that Blue Zones teach us when it comes to diet is not that there's one magical food. There's not one superfood that if you get it in your diet, you'll therefore live longer. The secret they teach us is how to prepare foods that are good for us, and most of us know what they are, how to prepare them so they actually taste good, so we'll actually eat them over time. We have many dozens of recipes to share with you on how to make healthy food taste good. And then finally, the big secret is how to get certain foods out of our diet. Tricks to stop eating when your stomach is 80% full. I wear this blue bracelet here. Everybody has one of these in your bag. A reminder to do something that Okinawans call hara hachibu. Stop when your stomach is 80% full. Not just doing it mnemonically, but pre-plating your food at the counter instead of bringing it to the table. That alone occasions consuming about 20 to 30% fewer calories. And then the most important part, having a foundation for how you connect. Putting your family first, keeping aging parents nearby, belonging to a faith. We know that people who belong to a faith, and it doesn't matter which one it is, and who show up at least 4 times a month, live 4 to 14 years longer than people who don't. And then finally, surrounding yourself with the right people. If your 3 best friends are obese, there's a 150% better chance that you'll be overweight. If your friends smoke, if they eat too much, if they do drugs, if they drink too much, those behaviors are contagious. So too is loneliness and unhappiness. So we're going to focus a lot of our efforts here in Spencer in building social networks that fuel the right kinds of behaviors. The reason being that friendships tend to be long-term adventures.